you don't expect it because we're so used to, abuse and being manipulated that you don't expect it from them. So it was hard for me to even vocalize that, wait a minute, this person is a predator.
Waiting till marriage, there are so many pluses in that, and we can see, the value in that. But self-exploration as it relates to your sexuality, your body that you're in, as well as how it relates to you interacting with potential dating partners, it's stunted.
If you find somebody attractive, you find somebody attractive. Even if you're in a relationship, you're not gonna stop finding people attractive. And that's fine. It's natural. Even if you have a friend that you've been friends with for a long time.
How do you develop that proper siblinghood? What does that really look? Now that we've outlined all the ways that men and women play, how do you develop a true siblinghood in Christ? Y'all know when we do these little castings, y'all are chosen for a specific reason. Part of it is because we think we know y'all so good, we already know what you're gonna say. I ain't gonna lie, and I'll happily be surprised, but we haven't really been surprised yet. You know what I mean? So if you don't know, now you know. You're watching Sabbath Lunch. This is the podcast that came out of Sabbath Lunch, and this is essentially everything that we just talk about after Sabbath, or essentially after church, after service. Yeah. And we just said, let's just put a microphone in front of it and see what happens. In true Sabbath Lunch style, we just finished eating some haystacks. Yeah. I'm a little lackadaisical because I overdid it. I overdid it, boy. I really.
It's the season.
Yes, it is. We don't know when this podcast is going to come out, but we a couple days after Christmas right now. I'm not going to tell you what year because we don't know when this is coming out. I'm not about to. 2026? Yeah, this is shout out to 2027. We're looking forward to a great year. You know what I mean? 2029 is going to be a good year. I'll tell y'all what. Today we talking about a little something. Jan, you want to chat on it?
All right. So today we're talking about a very interesting topic that we'll call the ministry of siblinghood. We're going to be talking about navigating platonic male and female friendships as Christians.
Goodness.
And what that looks like.
Now here's an interesting way to start off. Maya, my friend.
She's my friend.
Whose jacket is that?
That is a very interesting way to start off.
I ain't never seen you wear that jacket.
I felt impressed to cover the glory. And that leads us into this topic. So it's not about whose jacket it is. It's about how covered I am. You understand? Amen. You understand? Okay.
Maya, whose jacket is
Next.
Maya, whose jacket is You said, I'm passing the mic to someone who wearing Mike's jacket. But I really do want to touch on that because that's your boy. That's your friend. And so I think there's something interesting there. You wearing Mike's jacket,
right.
Honestly, it's pretty regular to all of us. We're not even thinking twice on it.
Right.
I forgot that wasn't even your pattern. I just realized, your fashion look a little different today.
Yeah.
Now tell me one or two things, man. Talk to me about your friendship with Mike, and talk to me about what people think about your friendship with Mike.
Ooh.
I will say I'm not sure what people think. You guys might have to inform me on that. But my friendship with Mike is Platonic.
What that play mean?
Platonic.
That's it, right? Is it Platonic or
what you playing?
Platonic?
What
Okay.
you playing with, sis?
Okay.
That's just how much fun they having.
You're done.
What does
You're
he mean by
done.
that?
Yes. So to start us off on platonic relationships, my friend Mike and I have a platonic relationship. That's the word of the day. We've been friends since we were 13, and so it's more family vibes, right? Once you cross that amount of years. But I think a lot of the questions that might come up here, I can definitely like share my insight on, because we're obviously like opposite sex Christian friends of God.
You don't gotta convince me.
Oh, no convincing. No, I'm just leading us into the
you gotta get your neck
topic.
in the way. Like, I know.
Yeah. So what does friendship really look like when it is truly platonic? If you guys had to say a definition, what would you say? What does that look like? For a person who's single, what does it look like to be in a platonic relationship with the opposite sex? And then what does it look like for a person who's in a committed relationship?
I mean, friendship is friendship, right? I will say this, even same-sex friendships change in marriage. Because the commitment that you can have to one person as a platonic male to male friend in my case, has to change when your first initial commitment is to a family. Right. So it doesn't have to even the same sex friendships change. But even more so when it's opposite sex. But in friendship, opposite sex friendship and singleness, for me anyways, it happened the same way it would happen with the same sex, right? I'm someone that checked in all the time. How are you? How's your week going? Tried at least to check in. Right? But I won't lie. Since getting involved in a serious relationships, deeply committed relationship, and then getting married, that changed. I just could not do that anymore. I tried, but I just couldn't. And that's why I love our circle, because somebody else picked up the baton and checked in on people and made sure people were okay. But just the same way you would love someone otherwise, how are you? How's life? You're invested in their well-being. And it's not to say that your interest in their well-being diminishes when you get married or you get into a serious relationship, but it just changes. Your priorities change. That's what it is.
A thought on that. If you marry someone who their chosen family is friends who are closer to them than their actual family, would you hold space for kind of like accepting that person's friend, even if it's an opposite sex, may be as close to them as a brother or as a sister? Would that change how you view your significant other having a friendship? And of course, it might be a case-by-case basis because every couple understands and talks to each other, but do we here as a collective feel that there are exceptions?
When you're coming into a relationship, if these relationships are already set in motion, they're already sturdy, you can't break them. And if you do, it could result in the end of your relationship, or it could result in your mate being unhappy and just basically accepting whatever you're doing, but being sad about it. And it could create resentment in your partner that down the line, they start to look at themselves and say, I'm a totally different person. I don't even talk to so-and-so anymore, so-and-so. And when you go back and try to talk to so-and-so that you were so close with, they may not want to be there anymore because of the choices that you made when you got into that relationship. So for someone to come into a relationship and try to affect your already cemented relationships is a very selfish act. And that is something that is supposed to be done by your mate. If your mate decides how that should change, those relationships should change, then they go about it with the other people the way they go about it. But if you manipulate and push that, it could come back later and end your relationship.
So funny enough for that, I think the best case scenario in that situation is if you both become friends with that person. Like, for example, Stu, when we first moved up here, he was close to Amy, from the jump immediately. They just talked about their personal relationships, life, their struggles that they had. And as I spent more time up here, I became closer to Stu by honestly hiking. That's the one thing Stu and I do a lot. We hike together, and he doesn't like it, but especially when I take him somewhere he doesn't know where he's going, and we've been able to develop where it's kind of like Stu can call me anytime, sometimes 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and I'll tell Stu, listen, man, what are you doing? What do you want? I'm half asleep. And then I end up staying up for 2 hours just talking about life and just checking up on him, making sure he's good. So I think it's best when you both develop a friendship with that person. So one, it'll help ease any relationship issues you both have. And I also think for that person that you're not in a relationship with and you're becoming friends with that person, it's best if they come to you as well and try to be friends with both of you and not just be biased toward one side or the other.
Can I ask a question on that? Yeah. I love that. I love that you said that. Was it a conscious decision on your part to become close to Stu because he was close to Amy?
Also, do you think it was a conscious decision on Stu's part to become close to you?
I think it might have been a more conscious decision on his part, actually.
Okay.
All surprised.
I think for me, really, wait, why are you surprised? Hold on. Wait, we'll get back to that. But no, for me, I just, when I first came to this group, I'm gonna be honest, all of you were friendly. I just had no expectations, didn't know who was who, just trying to get to know people. And I think he went out of his way because I think he realized how close he was to Amy and he wanted to develop that with me as well.
Okay. Respect.
Yeah. Shout out to Stuart. He was supposed to be here.
Feel better, my boy. Feel better. We love you.
You better be really sick.
Oh no, that boy's sick.
Oh, that's sad. Oh man, that's sad to hear. That's interesting. So for you, in the instance that, let's say, not Stu, but somebody were to come be great friends with Amy, and they're like, "What's up, Greg?"
I mean,
Oh, by the way, y'all, these two is engaged. Greg and Amy.
she's off the ring? Oh, my
Yeah,
goodness.
I forgot. We know, but they don't know.
Oh, that's true.
You know.
That's true. That's true.
So someone comes and they befriend Amy today, and they getting real. Oh, man, so, you do that, man. You mind if I call you and talk more? And it's like a weekly call, and it's like gets more consistent. And they're like, "Greg, great to see you."
That's
What's that-
interesting
what's
to
that
me.
mean?
Yeah.
Oh no, that's interesting to me because for me, at that point, that's a conversation I have with Amy at that point. Because I'm gonna be very honest, if that person doesn't want to be friends with me, does he owe me anything technically? Not really. So that conversation is between me and the person I'm in a relationship with, Amy. Now, at the same time, if that person respects me, then yeah, he should have that conversation with me. But if he doesn't respect me, then at that point, Amy and I have to have a conversation. Listen, I don't really rock with this guy. So
Well, Greg, we have seen these become friends with Amy situations, or attempt to, or attempt to go in opposite directions.
What do you mean by that?
Well, somebody would be like, I need your number for this, that, or the other reason, and start, silly reasons. And
So just to be specific, you're not specifically talking about Amy, right? You're just talking about
Maybe he
friendships
is.
in general.
I think he might be.
I will
Manny, I think he might be.
say yes and no. So,
Okay.
a person would get Amy or whoever else's number, and maybe have a reason that maybe seems good, but it's not true.
You said, as my sister in Christ.
Yeah.
As my sister in Christ.
Yeah.
Or in
Yeah.
that, it's a group, we should all exchange numbers.
That's a good one. That's a
That was the
divisive one.
strongest play at one point.
You know what? I was surprised when I found that one out. But anyway, so
That was a real thing that happened.
so I want to know, as this person, does that, and because we're in a church environment, it's hard to just
very nice.
it's hard to just assume that somebody has the worst intentions.
Right.
Therefore, it's easier for that person to behave in that manner and you to give them your number and a communication to begin. So how that person uses the time that they're communicating and how often that person calls,
Right.
you know, starts to be obvious. Greg, how do you handle the situation when things go awry?
First, that's a conversation, like I said, I have with Amy. I'm listening. As a person I'm in a relationship with, because I mean, if let's say your girl talking to somebody, right, and you just notice they talking a lot to each other, you have beef with that man, absolutely, but you're not in a relationship with him, so how can you come to him first? You see what I'm saying?
I'm gonna nip it in the bud. See, well, okay, okay. Well, there's a politeness that sometimes we have about us, and sometimes we don't address the situation directly with all the parties involved. I've discovered throughout these years of life that is the wrong way to go about any situation. And if you feel this, you should address it directly with the person who has gotten the number and your mate. And say exactly how you feel.
You got the fork.
Yes, I have the fork. Okay. I'm obsessed with this. So I hear you, Joelle, and to get a visualization of what that looks like for you, can we do a little role play? Can you if you come up and your girl is talking to a guy who has been asking him, hey, call me, I need to know what book comes after John. How does that go? What does that look like?
And the calls already happened.
And the calls already happens.
Did she have a friendship with this person prior to me?
He came off of the streets into the fertile, friendly environment of the church.
Then I will introduce myself and I will say, hi. I am her boyfriend. We are dating.
That's what boyfriend and girlfriend relationships mean.
And
He said, in case you don't know.
We Webster in here.
And when exactly did the two of you exchange numbers, and what exactly do these conversations consist of? And, this is the first conversation, so I'm not going to have an air of anger.
Accusation.
Yeah, accusation. But I will be very, talk very plainly and say that I would like answers for these questions.
But what if, bro, why you calm down? It's not that serious. Like, this why I'm with church people.
Well, I will say, if this is your response, then we have to cut this. Well, there was a time where somebody who was friends with Elle, my girlfriend, had came to church, and the person was very inquisitive about Elle's life, and they were having a conversation, and in the middle of that conversation, I calmly walked over and said, hi, I'm Joelle. I'm Elle's boyfriend. What is your name?
Obsessed.
And how did you and her meet? How long have you known each other? And what are you talking about right now?
What was the comment that made you actually start walking up to him like, wait a minute?
Yeah,
What was the comment? Yeah.
It wasn't a specific comment. It was the eagerness in the other person.
May I make a comment? If we are as successful as we hope to be, and I mean by men, then there's a high likelihood that our women are really attractive, not just to us, but to everybody else out there, right? And I'm of the opinion that my significant other, my wife, knows how to respect herself, myself, and our relationship.
Of course.
I know men are checking her out wherever she goes. It's not just in church. I know men are stepping to her wherever she goes. It's not just in church. So it's no difference where we are, right? But that's where that trust comes in. I don't need to step in. If my wife reaches out to me and be like, listen, this person keeps bothering me, that's a problem, right? And I'm stepping in not from a space of, listen, I'm trying to stop a problem, right? So, but up until then, Shorty got it.
Well,
She got it.
there are different personalities, and there are people that don't want to be rude. And I do feel at times with those different personalities, if the person is more lenient and doesn't want to be rude, especially in church, and in normal life, I will step in and maybe be rude, but I will try not to be. There's always a first encounter.
But what's the rude and what's rude and what's direct?
That's a good question. I find when somebody's trying to be rude, you can tell that they're trying to be rude. And maybe condescending and by the comments that they're making and the tones that they're taking. But when you approach somebody with directness and respect, you can save room to have a relationship with the person later. And if you approach them with directness and respect, it allows them to be able to respect what you're doing.
I also think that it's really important for like the woman in the relationship to also have that like respectability and transparency with their partner. Because if it's a case that like there was an instance where like someone had gotten my number at the church and they were like,
So you remember now?
Yes, now I remember. Yes, because I was like, who is he talking about? I do remember one person. And they had gotten my number, and like it was like a random like Tuesday. Greg and I were like driving somewhere, and they called me, and they were like, oh, hey, like, how are you doing? And I had them on speakerphone because I don't have like, they were connected to they were connected to my car because any conversation that I have, I can have them with Greg, like knowing who I'm talking to, unless they're like, oh, like, can you take me off? It's private. So like they were just on the phone, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing good. And they were like, oh, like, how was your weekend? And I was like, it was fine, like it's cool, like yeah. I'm like, I'm trying to like
when we get to the point,
right? And so then. Eventually, later down the line, I think he was asking me to like help him with his resume, and I was like, okay, I guess that's fine. But I'm like, you could have skipped the small talk. Like, why did you need to? And then, he also asked about Greg, but the way that he asked about Greg, I was like, are you trying to do this to make it seem like you're being respectful, or like?
He was hoping Greg wasn't.
He was asking me about my weekend.
Crazy.
He asked me like everything about me, and then he was like, oh, how's Greg? And I was like, he's good.
He was hoping you were gonna say in the hospital or something. Like, he was.
I don't know.
I have no relationship really with this person.
Yeah, and so I was like, he's fine, like he's doing good. He did this and this and this. His week was okay, whatever. And then he went into like, oh well, can you help me with my resume and blah blah blah. And I was like, yeah, sure. But like he wanted me to help him like right on the phone, and I was like, oh no, we gotta do this. Yeah. I was like, we gotta do this later. I was like, I don't even have a computer in front of me, so I was like, no, it's okay. But at the same time, I was like, I also made sure to tell him like in a later conversation that I was like, hey, like I am in a very serious relationship, so I'm like, if it's the case that it's your intention to like get closer to me because you want to be more than friends, I'm like, he's not going anywhere. So yeah, so I'm like, and any other guy that has approached me and like it seems like they're interested, and I'm like, I don't want to be that girl, but I'm a man. So like I always make it a statement to be like, I am in a relationship, and now I can physically like show you that like I'm like no, like I'm taken. So even before the ring, I was like, I don't want to be that woman, but I got a man. So, yeah, and a lot of guys are like, oh, well, we could just be friends. I'm like, but there's certain friends that I have that don't act like how you act. Right. So I always make a point to be like, got a little bit too much dip on your chip.
But
so.
even to your point, I think as a man or woman, you should be able to walk into any room where you have the most attractive people in the world coming after you, and if you're in a relationship, just be able to deny them. I think that's where the trust comes in. Yeah. Deny them and say, no, I'm in a relationship. Yeah. Absolutely. Like, there's no reason where Amy goes out and I should be like, damn, Amy's going out tonight with her friends.
Mercy.
Wonder what she's got going on. I wonder how many guys' numbers she's gonna get. Who's gonna hit her up? Like, there's never reason I should ever think that, or anybody in a committed relationship, because at that point, the relationship's not really a committed relationship.
I show Greg the numbers. I'd be like, yo, look who tried to talk to me tonight. He'd be like, who this?
See, it's interesting because when we're in church, we kind of have this feeding ground. We have a very marriage-centric religion. Yeah. I'll just say religion. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. To the point where you are 10 years old, people are trying to ship you with, you know what I mean? Like, y'all are gonna, you know.
It's not healthy, by the way.
Not, very unhealthy. To the point where you have individuals that are come into their adulthood with the perspective and the impression that, like, my goal and the only goal that matters is to be married. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so what happens, I think that piece there is where we never speak on siblinghood, because that is such a big focal point.
You know, I never heard that term till today. Siblinghood.
She taught me too.
Well, see, the thing is, I don't even know if it's a real term.
So you made it up? Wait, so you made it up?
But the thought came to mind. I don't know if I made it up or if I saw it somewhere, but I saw this video clip on Instagram, and from the time that I first saw it, it's kind of been rolling around in my mind about how we relate to the opposite sex, you know, as Christians in church, you know? So I just want to share it with you guys. I want to know what you think about it. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you feel like this is a very nuanced conversation? Let's talk about it, okay?
Gotcha.
All right.
What is our role when it comes to discipleship to other men? What's our role? Like, where do we speak into their life, and where do we, like, okay, we can't really speak into that?
That's an excellent question that you can answer.
This was a women's conference, by the way.
I was sitting back here like, come on, Jackie, get it. One of the things we aren't really great at in the church is talking about the doctrine of siblings and what it means to be a brother and sister in Christ. We have so romanticized and sexualized relationships between men and women that we don't know how to be siblings. And so there are women who don't need a boo, they need a brother.
Have mercy.
And there are men who don't need a, I don't know, a sexy mama, they need a sister. We are missing out on what God meant for us to be a family. Because we are always acting like, if you get around that woman, oh, she's going to tempt you for sin. We have missed loving one another, speaking into each other's lives, helping one another, practicing the one another's is not gender specific.
There's so much to say about that.
That was a hit.
That's really good.
Yeah. You know, the first thing I thought about is how many missed opportunities we have of real friendship that we don't take because of gender difference. But at the same time, because I have seen within our group in particular, even at church, you know, and this is a group, you know, throughout Jersey, we all started off in different churches, respectfully, right? And we all just started hanging out across the board. Because we have a church culture that is default very kind, it unfortunately also is a great breeding ground for, like, predators. And that, like, spoil, and that's why you say that hard. He had a flashback. So, you know, but it's like, you know, like I almost feel like as a group we've like had like kind of like ups and downs of it, where we've had like siblinghood. We didn't know what to call it back then, you know, but we've had siblinghood, and then we've had like, everyone needs to reel it back, back. And we've had like siblinghood, and then it's like, all right, everyone needs to reel it back, you know. And I think through that process of filtration, we still all have like certain pairs of like, that's still my sis, and all that, but it fluctuates heavily, you know.
You know, what it comes down to is that I think she just mentioned it in the clip. nobody sets us aside, male or female, and talk to us or discuss with us how to deal with, emotions and feelings and attractions that are coming up when we're coming up. So we have a men's group around us that we haven't met in a long time, but it was very helpful when we were meeting, which was before the pandemic, because it gave us a space to have conversations, honest conversations about the opposite sex in our group, right? But one thing I learned from that group, or that group helped encourage, was that just because you find them attractive doesn't mean that you have to pursue them for a romantic or sexual relationship, right? We were very blatant to discuss that because, here we are, we're coming of age. As you mentioned, she said, we are very marriage focused in our minds. And the women around us are bad. I'm not going to front, right? They're very attractive women. So people might naturally ask, well, why don't you then? Right? Why don't you explore and engage? There's a lot of exploration that doesn't have to cross the sexual or romantic line, right? But that takes a lot of discipline on both folks to make sure to say, hey, these lines don't get crossed. For me, it was very important to me because I knew that one day I would bring a wife into this group. And I didn't want a situation where my wife would walk into a group where I've talked to this girl, I've talked to that girl, I've talked to that girl. It just was not what I wanted at all. So I was extremely careful about, the women I engaged with, the women that came over my house, the kind of conversations I'm having with them, how late I'm having those conversations. But then there were ones that we got really, really close with, right? And even within those relationships, we still had to make sure that we put checks and balances in there,
I think that there is, if you find somebody attractive, you find somebody attractive. That is, the straight, and even if you're in a relationship, you're not going to stop finding people attractive. It's not, you're just, you're pretending if any other thing, but and that's fine. It's natural. Yeah. Even if you have a friend that you've been friends with for a long time, you still may find that friend attractive. But it's a set fact in your mind, and it doesn't mean that you're going to pursue them.
Right.
So like Manny looks great right now.
Well, thank you,
Manny
brother,
looks
man.
great.
Thank you.
He's been in the gym.
Yeah, that's my boy.
Yeah. So, and on another side of it, if you guys have been friends for a long time and it does start to get into the place of dating, I personally don't think that you should not do that because you've been friends for a long time, because that may be the
secret sauce.
The secret sauce. It may be the best relationship that you've ever had because you know the person so well. And there's no fronting because everything's already on the table. However, there's always two sides, and not to say that our goal has to always be to get married, but some of us do want to get married, and you don't know where God has that person for you, and things change over time. Even your friendships with people change over time. Your closeness with people changes over time, and God may have a time set aside that you and that person are supposed to get together. Your friends around you, they would be, supportive of that. That's a beautiful thing. And it's not everybody in your group that you go and try. You have to be very sure about that person that you decide to go and attempt to date. You have to be very, very sure. And I've seen within the men's group, when we have our discussions, and people would say, like Manny was saying, well, how come you never done that? And the person
Not done that.
Well, done that by attempt to date this person, and the person will have a very quick and precise answer for you because they thought of it. And they've thought of it. Yeah, they've considered it, and they understand why they believe that it would not work. You know, so I think that that's more of a natural order of things. I don't believe that we can be in a place with everybody and just have like, oh, if there's a force field, you know, like there's some imaginary force field where you can't try and talk to the person because they're part of the friend group. No, but there is a decorum, and you can't go and try to date every person in the group, you know, and you definitely can't act like the group is your own personal singles bar.
Right. Before I say anything, I feel like there's something that needs to be said.
Might say y'all was snickering too hard.
Somebody has So I want to touch on what you said, Joelle, but in response to that video, I do think that it is definitely possible that there are a lot of missed opportunities by men and women within the church over-sexualizing each other just at the beginning when there is potential for friendship. And personally, as a Christian woman, I think the friend zone is the best zone because if you're in a group like this where we're all close and you don't want to cross your laces too much, date everybody, aka be friends, learn them, watch them, experience them.
Goodness, that was a bar.
It's because it's the same thing as dating, but your pocket is happier. Like, let's be real. Like, just date everyone. You know what I mean? And then when you see someone you want to pursue, bring out the big guns. But I definitely think that the friend zone is to be celebrated within church community.
Yes.
I also wanted to ask, you guys said that you have a men's group, right? We're talking about the relationship between opposite sex, but in your men's group, is there a level of accountability? Like, okay.
We be flaming people. We roast them crazy. We believe in shame.
Okay.
We believe in shame.
We strongly believe in shame, and we call people out, and we let them know you shouldn't have done that. You know you wrong, and if you don't do that, not only do you not have love for your other friends, but you're pushing the wrongness into your culture of friends. So once you tell one person that it's okay that you did that, oh no, you did, give me 5.
Sets a tone.
It sets a tone for other people. Like, oh, this is okay.
Right.
Oh.
We've had to call some predators out.
Okay.
We've had to call some predators out.
Wrong word.
Look, hey man.
Do tell.
I kind of want some insight. I think sometimes from the outside looking in, like, well, as ladies,
you think it's the
we
Wild Wild
sometimes
West.
wonder, like, is there accountability? Because the things that do happen or behind the scenes, it's like, who's looking out? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I will say there have been times in the past, I'll tell you what, we didn't know everything happened until
That's
a good
true.
sister said something. That's where we done brought back shame. You know, and I think that I think part of the generosity of our group, of the culture, it attracts predators. It doesn't just like keep them well fed. It attracts them, right? Because
Look at all these sheep.
absolutely. But I think that for us, we have to have that men's group to be able to say, you only get about one shot.
Yeah, that's it.
You get about one shot.
And make it a good shot. If you're not serious about taking that shot,
Don't take it.
You better be so for real.
Yeah.
But even to that, even when we're in relationships, and I'm gonna speak about me, every once in a while I say certain things that Amy may or may not disagree with, and I'll put it like that. And there'll be times where a lot of men here be like, "Hey, yo, Greg, why did you say that?" Or like it'll come up in the group chat, or it'll be us talking like, you probably shouldn't have said that to me. I'll be like, why? And I remember these conversations that we had like 2020, 2021. I've gotten a lot better with this, by the way. But there was a point in time.
It's a skill level. You have to get better. That joint is not natural.
Oh yeah.
It's not natural, and it only gets stronger when the men, especially men around you, hold you accountable.
Absolutely.
You've been working on it. Like you're giving husband. You're giving husband. Like
I appreciate that. Thank you.
If you couldn't hear it, Maya said, I can tell you've been working on it. That's nice.
I don't say as much as I used to say. Every once in a while I do, but Amy and I have a conversation, and even then, now I can catch myself as well. There was a point in time where I would just say whatever, and then y'all be quiet, y'all just let me rock, but be like, nah, this boy's tripping. This boy talking way too much.
But you know, part of that is that you said Joel too. Me too. It's okay. Me too. Me too.
Hey,
Me
Joel,
too.
you
All
got
of
that,
us.
my boy.
But you know, part of it is that people don't treat. No one teaches you. There is no. I don't know why this is not a conversation of like when you're in a relationship, you want to act like who's had that conversation? You only learn by mistake, or someone sees you're so bad at it.
Yeah.
That now it's time for a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unfortunately, a lot of times, if she cares about you enough, that conversation is your significant other.
Yeah.
You know, or it just never happens, and this person's just like, I don't know why it keeps on not working out. You know.
Yeah.
One thing that I will say is that in our culture, in our church, we start dating late, and we don't have as many relationships as our peers usually do, and we're kind of babies in relationships. So I don't know. She's asked me why. I don't know why.
I think part of that is around the church environment's collective views on sexuality.
Oh, that's a good point.
And
Abstinence.
you know, our only job as young people or children coming into ourselves and being the first time in this body really is to understand ourselves and everything about ourselves. But there's a lot of pressure on staying away from that discovery. And so I think relationships happen a lot later because there's a lot of fear around restraint. And yes, like waiting till marriage, there are so many pluses in that, and we can see, you know, the value in that. But self-exploration as it relates to your sexuality, your body that you're in, as well as how it relates to you interacting with potential dating partners, that is with what is the word I'm looking for? It's withheld. It's stunted. So I think that's part
I would
of
also
it.
like to add on top of that, it's also, as Joel was saying, predators, like they tend to see this group or Christians in general as easy targets. So it's easier for us to just not engage to kind of stop ourselves, I would say, as women in general, like Christian women. I feel like it's like, okay, we see a lot of that around, so we're more hesitant to then date. I think that's a layer of it, to answer your question.
But due to that fact, I think that has something to do with why sometimes we don't know exactly how to act in relationships or in siblinghood. So it's something that we're still learning. We're still learning kind of late.
But I mean, if I can push back a little bit, I think that learning a little late is okay. 100%. Because when we are so young and our mind is so easily formed.
Impressionable,
thank you, that's the word. We can take things that maybe weren't supposed to be permanent and make it permanent. Certain perspectives, right? I think, and my wife and I talk about how to train up our child in the future. We're not pregnant yet, I'm just saying. But an important thing is and I'm discovering, male or female, is to teach them how to be friends, right? Be friends with people, understand the kind of relationships you need in your life. But then as they start becoming of age, once they start entering their teenage years, let them know that dating has a purpose. That purpose is not fun, it's marriage. Right? I know that pressure is there. What is the point of dating if it's not to be married? If we make dating a fun thing, I'm not saying don't have fun in dating, right? But if dating becomes a social activity, just for the fun of just going out and having dates, that's when we get into toxic situations. That's when finding a partner becomes that much more difficult, right? So until you can make the commitment that comes with dating, have friends. You may be attracted to a woman, and there's nothing wrong, or someone, and there's nothing wrong with you voicing that. In fact, I want them to be able to come to us and say, hey, I think this guy is cute, or I think this girl is cute. Okay, well, let's talk about that, right? Because that will give me an opportunity as a father to teach them what it means to treat someone respectfully, even when there's a physical, sexual attraction, right? So let's have that conversation. We don't have that conversation in church, right? Whenever like little kids are starting to, like you see them, they're starting to develop sexual interest in someone, a lot of times we ostracize them and we reprimand them, as opposed to pulling them to the side and saying, hey, I noticed this. Can you talk to me about how this is happening in your mind and your head? What are you feeling like? What are your thoughts? And have that conversation, because that's where we get to have that, teaching moment, so that when they do in fact step into dating, they understand it's a purpose. Hopefully, if it's a man, they understand what their vision is, right? What's the vision that you'll be pitching the woman? And if it's a woman, the woman recognizes, okay, I understand the purpose that God has called me for. This pitch that I'm hearing, is it going to help my purpose bloom? Is this a place where I can thrive? Can I help this purpose much more, right? But I don't think a lot of young people enter dating with that understanding even.
Yeah. I love what you said, and I think it's so crucial that dating needs to be looked at as intentional. I do, however, disagree that that's the only purpose. I think that romantic dating is also a playground for self-discovery in other ways. If you only have had friends until the age that you're ready to get married, and you don't know how to successfully flirt, that's going to be stressful.
You can flirt with friends. I flirt all the time. In fact, that's something I had to check.
Okay, but you had to check it.
Listen, I'm being honest.
You had to check it because it wasn't appropriate within the context of a relationship.
She said, trust me, you had problems.
The reason you had to check it is because friendships are not for flirting, but you have to...
I disagree. Listen.
Hold on. Let me just finish this part. Let me just finish this part. Dating for fun is a category of dating that I think is important. Getting to know outside of the context of friendship, what romantic partners do I enjoy? Your energies and how they align are different than a friend. Most of my friends are extroverts, but I tend to date introverts. That discovery of how that dynamic works for you is important. But to your point, I think it's really important to be clear that, hey, I want to date you. This is the vision I'm pitching. I want to date you for marriage, or I'm intrigued by you. I want to date you. I want to go out on some dates with you. I think it's very important to be clear. To be kind is to be clear. But I do think that there's a space for the playground of self-discovery in dating to get to know what you like. Just be clear about it. Just be clear about your intentions.
I think I'm more in the middle ground of both of those things, because it can be very dangerous when you even go in with the process of this is a playground, if you get what I'm saying. Like, self-discovery is okay, but you can do that same self-discovery on your own. Like, when you're doing it with someone to say, I'm doing it with you, and there's no intention of marriage, like, it just kind of becomes a time waster. And that's not like on you in general, just generally, because then you're in this thing and you don't really know what you're doing. You don't really have a purpose. And then you kind of just find yourself lost. So I think there's definitely like an aspect of it, but I think if you focus on that too heavily and you don't even know if you're doing it, you just have to then have that mindset to be like, okay, well, why am I here? And a lot of people end up in relationships and they waste years of their lives on that.
So it sounds like we're talking about two different types of dating. As you're talking, the categories that are becoming more clear to me is going out on dates, dating, versus being in a relationship. I do believe that if someone is not financially ready or has the vision to court somebody as a wife, don't get in a relationship with that person.
And that leads me back to what I originally wanted to talk about. I've been holding on forever on this. Friends. Like, that's the basis of like our whole opposite sex existence from what what they were even talking about in the video. It's like, even as a Christian, you have to learn how to be friends. Like, it's something I guess our parents should have taught us, how to be friends with the opposite sex, but maybe they didn't know, they weren't aware. But now that, we know and we're aware, that's something we would want our next generation to know. Like, how do you be friends without thinking of this person as someone who I want to date? Because a lot of people do that. They'll just be friends with you, and then you'll realize later they had some intention to date you. And that's more, I don't want to sound bad when I say this, but that is very sneaky and underhanded. Like, you start to feel used and manipulated, and it's like
it's indirect
or intentional.
Right. So it's like you have to know how to be a friend and just be a friend. Don't look at this person as something else. When it gets to that stage, if you think you're getting to that stage, then that's when you have a different conversation. I feel like that's involving boundaries and that's involving respect.
Yeah.
Because a lot of men and women, I won't just say men, their respect is viewed as how much they're attracted to you, and that's a problem.
Mercy.
That's a huge
Mercy.
problem. Women say that all the time.
Did you ever get that?
You say that twice.
The amount of, she said, for both men and women, the amount of respect they give each other depends on how attracted they are to you. So in other words, if they're not attracted to you, they feel the liberty to be disrespectful. How insane!
That the case with women, though.
The way some women were talking about men's pockets,
I think it is. I think the attraction might be different sometimes. Sometimes it can be a relatively value-based.
Value-based.
You know what I mean? Like
that's what it is.
It's not always about the physical aesthetic. It's about like, man, he lazy. Or like, just the facetious stuff that is men stuff. I think that's how it gets flipped a bit. I wanted to talk on one thing. Say it because my thing might change topic.
Well, I would say that I had two things to say, but the first thing now is I think that women are very open-minded in the way that they are attracted to men, because the way I've seen it with some of my friends, that they won't be attracted to the man that much physically, but there may be another aspect that they're very attracted to that man with. Men don't really work that way, but
I'm trying not to make this a dating conversation, so I'm gonna let this go, but I disagree.
We're not gonna go down this rabbit hole.
Right. Well, man, I'm talking about the majority of our species, but yeah, I just feel like women have more ways to be attracted, to a man. And the thing about the respect is, shamefully true. Yes, a lot of times the amount of respect a man has for a woman can be equated to how attractive he thinks that woman is.
So that's why.
Mercy.
That's why.
Just
Mercy.
period.
Oh yeah, that's why. That's why.
But underlying, sorry to cut you off, is that person actually doesn't have any level of respect.
Correct.
Because the true colors show if that woman that he finds really attractive is not interested. Right?
I ain't want
now
you anyways.
The true colors really, really show. But if you truly have respect for somebody and you value someone, the way you treat them, the wholesomeness of your interactions with them will remain consistent no matter what.
1,000%. It's like that example of how a person treats. Yeah, I love how you said that. It's like the example of how a person treats the waiter or the waitress. Right. I think if a person has a character where they're going to completely disregard someone based on them not being attractive, then I think that's kind of like a character issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
So. I would even extend it to maybe even having friends of the opposite sex. Like, if they don't, not to say you have a best friend of the opposite sex, but if you don't have any friends of the opposite sex, I would say that I would kind of consider that a red flag, because now you're teaching the building blocks of friendship to your significant other. Right. So I would even extend it that far.
That's such a good point.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Something I want to talk about here. We've spoken about the perspective of a predator as a male here very often. What does
talk about
a female predator look like? Because we can't pretend it doesn't exist.
It does.
It does exist.
It looks different. Well, a male person. When we talked about we have a high breeding ground for a comfortable place for predators to enter. I think it's easy for us to think and identify men because just in dating structure, men are the pursuer, right? It's like they're going to initiate all that stuff, and it's very easy to be like, man, he out of line. Like he be trying it all the time. But we know, look, this is a 50-50.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't see many. So the only example I have is probably like one person I've met in my whole like entire life. Yes, as a woman that I was like.
I disagree with your perspective that you haven't seen many.
Or maybe I didn't know.
Exactly.
I didn't know personally.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm like, I've only seen personally one where it was like, oh no. And it wasn't until I saw everything in its entirety, like the whole story, years and years later, I was like, wait a minute. This person is manipulative. They know what they want, and they're gonna do whatever it takes to get it. They will become a different person in order to get it. And I feel like for me to it took me years to sit down with that and say, because I didn't expect it, because it's a woman. So you think, woman? Okay, because you don't expect it because we're so used to, abuse and being manipulated that you don't expect it from them. So it was hard for me to even vocalize that, wait a minute, this person is a predator. If they want something, whether they have a boyfriend, whether it's a marriage, whether someone else's collateral damage, whether someone else's marriage is collateral damage, they're going to get it. And I'm like, well, how could you be so selfish? That's literally what I had to. How could you be literally?
I just thought
no
of an
offense,
example.
guys, but you expect that from males, more than you expect it from women. Sorry.
I wasn't going to share the example, but I'm just glad that you posed the question because it caused me to think, I've definitely seen examples of that.
That's no fun.
Okay, but I don't want you to put pieces together, But it's interesting that you said that because it's not just a sexual predator. And the first place that my mind went was, have I ever seen like an older woman come in and
You say cougar.
Groom. But yeah.
She's 30 years old.
Yeah, but to your point, there's a lot of manipulative women that can come into a space where it's safe, they feel like they're protected, and they're messy. I don't know how else to say it, but they're messy, and it goes unchecked. It goes unchecked. Yeah.
Years and years and years.
Yeah, so I think that would be the only example I can think of.
Well, I've seen two examples because I think that a male predator is very much outwardly, like you can see it. You can see it from across the room.
He walked different.
He walked different. He talked different. He growled different. But a female predator, I believe, is a little more concealed. Even I believe that they can be a little more skillful.
Smart.
Yeah,
They're smart. They're always
very
smart. Always.
You will not know that they are what they are until it's too late. I think that they're consistently trying to get you in positions where you're alone with them. There's a lot of different things, but two real situations that I've seen in the church. I didn't see, there was somebody that can be considered a female predator, but I didn't see it until that person was single. So that was even more difficult because the person was with somebody and then all of a sudden, boom, they're single and predator activated. And now they're going. But you had a relationship with the person before when they were not single, and you're thinking it's the same. You don't know why she wants you to meet her at Ponderosa.
Whoa. Come on, Joel.
You don't know why she's touching your arm in this conversation, and y'all have had 100 conversations, and she never did that before. You don't know why she's all of a sudden subtly flirting with you, and sometimes you can't figure it out. Like me, I don't pick up on those things if I already had a relationship with the person, and so I won't pick up on that fast because I already had a relationship with the person. They weren't doing that before.
So when she touched you above the elbow, you didn't know what was going on?
I didn't even notice but anyway.
Can I ask a question?
I have a question to ask you. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, so now my question is, I feel like I've been a little bit confused on the whole like predator definition when we started talking about female predators. Are we considering female predators in the same way that we would consider male predators? Because when I think about a male predator, I'm thinking like they're only after one thing, right? But when I think about women, you know, I feel like our needs are more layered and nuanced. So like, can a woman be predatory, like to maybe like feed her emotional needs without seeking something sexually?
Absolutely.
Yes.
She gonna steal your time,
And-
your money.
Yes.
We're not even talking about.
Capacity.
Yeah, so we're not even going to talk about money or like the physical, but just the emotional. Can a woman be emotionally predatorial
Absolutely.
Yes.
to men, and how does that look in male-female, seemingly or what's supposed to be a platonic relationship?
Like, I've definitely seen. I've never been close to someone who's ever done this, or maybe I just didn't know that they were doing this. But like, I've definitely heard of women that they refuse to be single because they always want like a companion, especially when cuffing season comes around. They're like, oh, I got to find a man because I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be cold. I want someone to always watch my movies with me, eat with me, whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. But like, if you're only looking for just company and you're not actually investing in that person, what are you really doing? Like Cheyenne said, you're wasting their time. So like, I've seen women before where it's like, they're like, oh yeah, like I went out with this guy because I wanted like a meal and I wanted someone to cuddle with me, and then they also layer sex on top of it. So it's like, you just want that person because you want them around. You're just looking for a really cute guy, either to show off on like to your friends, or just so you can have him on social media, or because you're like, oh well, I'm really lonely and I don't want to be alone all the time, so I just need somebody here.
Yeah.
And they won't. You're not actually investing for like marriage or even like a serious relationship if you weren't even planning on getting married. They just go on about it with your emotional, I don't know, satisfaction, I guess.
Yeah, 1,000%. And to answer your question about what does that look like with women in the context of in a church environment, I think that it can come from emotional and spiritual manipulation that might say, you're supposed to be a brother in Christ. You're supposed to have my back. Why won't you do this thing that I'm asking you to do? It's like spiritually playing the victim card.
Yeah.
What's the other way of putting it? Yes, the spiritual damsel in distress says, I just can't compute unless you just do what I want you to do. God wants you to be this man of God. So I think that speaking on behalf of God and manipulating men who already take a lot of pride in being the men of God that they are is a huge form of emotional manipulation that can be in the predator category.
I actually have a question for the women. Let's say there was a man in a long-term relationship and he broke up with his girlfriend. 2 or 3 days later, a friend of this man, a woman, hits him up, asks him to go on a date, and she says something along the lines like, listen, I've heard you're single, I'm interested in you. Now, do you consider that predatory? Or do you consider that, because if you know 3 days after they broke up or a day or two after they broke up, do you consider that predatory, like she was waiting for your downfall in your relationship or not?
I genuinely believe, sorry, I know you posed, I just want to say one point.
Go ahead.
I genuinely believe that for the most part, a woman predator lies in waiting.
Okay.
And that lie in waiting, it's like a Venus flytrap. And what they're looking for is not always even a romantic advancement, but any type of gesture that can be perceived as a romantic gesture
1,000%.
that can now be, that's all, it's like take an inch, take a mile, now be taken and manipulated into a much deeper situation to where the man doesn't even realize.
Yeah.
Right.
Because men, I'm not going to say we stupid, but
No. I'm gonna be very honest with you. I'm very stupid. I'm very stupid. Listen, I'm gonna be very honest.
Like,
I think an example is like, I mean, this is a hot take. I don't think we might need to talk about sisterhood. I don't think that many women really care about other women before marriage in the church.
I think I agree with that.
Is that crazy?
See,
That is crazy.
I would like to.
Good.
I would like to also talk about the female predator that's looking for companionship / friendship. If you are dating someone else, the result in that female predator pursuing you and being successful in taking your time could result in you losing your actual relationship that was moving towards marriage. And that's, to me, that's worse than the other predator, because at least the other predator is.
That's what you're about to say.
There's levels
At
to
least
it.
the other predator. And another thing is, there are marriage predators. There are marriage predators, and they're more aggressive than the other predators because they have long-term goals.
I think it's just with the marriage predators, it's so much easier for a public shaming that when a marriage was broken up. Yeah. But in the same way Manny said, we're not really taught about dating in our culture. Right? We're not taught very heavily about dating, so a lot of times dating is not very respected. And we up here in the north right now. You know, we in the north, the beautiful New Jersey.
it's different than the Bible Belt.
You feel me? In the Bible, dating only about 2-3 weeks before marriage takes place.
1000%.
And that's almost even a signal of like, you don't got to take this too serious. And that's kind of the, we say the Bible Belt is like the purest form of church culture in a way. Sometimes, we have careers and economic ambitions here. But, the thing is, we see dating oftentimes as like, they're not married. There's a lot that gets
so disrespectful.
Exactly.
I had a pastor who would say
that. They're single to God.
Yeah. I had a pastor who said that they ain't married, they single before God. So
the pastor be saying it.
That's why I don't say that. I say to my significant other that if you do say that and this woman comes to talk to me, you're kind of giving her a little leeway. You're kind of giving her a little bit of a opening right there.
I mean,
come in.
Hot take, but I agree with what the pastor said. If you're dating for 5-6 years and you don't have a game plan for marriage, you are single, and even better for you guys both to be single, because maybe another avenue might provide a more clear foundation to a successful marriage. Like, I think long-term dating, especially as a Christian, is really impractical if you're trying to stay pure, build for the future. What does that look like if you're just playing house and keeping each other off the market without a date in mind?
Yo.
I agree with Pastor.
I agree.
And this is how the female predators do it.
Origin story.
She's like, I'm doing God's work here.
Someone here said,
let that man free.
Yes. You are so right.
Oh, I do have a response to that. And there's always two sides. One thing I would say is you have to, everybody has a different opinion of long. And if you marry somebody and you don't know them, then your marriage may break later on. You need to experience this person and know this person.
I'm so sorry.
Let's go back.
Again, this is not a dating conversation that we're having, so I'm really trying to restrain myself. But sir, you don't need 5 years to know somebody. So
you don't need 5 years, but you do need 3.
Okay. All right.
3 years to figure out what are you figuring out in 3 years?
I was told that too good to them.
Oh no, we are.
Feed them every week. Invite them over. Drive them home.
Oh, we do.
They get invited to social events.
Yeah.
They do, but
we actually don't know collectively how to box a predator. We don't know how to box a predator out because we're like, but what would Jesus do?
Jesus will turn the other cheek, we say.
That's a problem. The predator need rides. That isn't enough.
The predator needs rides.
They need bus money. They need
Mercy.
Well, here's the thing. No predator can
Bro,
operate
Joel,
without
stop, bro.
enablement.
Joel,
Right.
No
Joel,
predator can operate without
Joel,
enablement.
stop.
Whether that is like a check,
Honestly,
a go
I
ahead,
will
a
say,
silent tolerance.
It's a little chaotic.
Can he shut up?
hey, yo,
There's a question
I
that
will say, though, to Joel's point, there was a time where that did happen. I really actually just didn't appreciate where someone needs a ride. And then they go out of their way to, try to shoot
take your
their
girl.
shot and try to take advantage of that situation. Like, that's grimy to me, very grimy. And I actually spoke to a person about it. Like, don't ever do that again. Matter of fact, just please stay away from this person for quite some
that's
time.
my favorite type of.
because then you have the permission to be as rude and as ruthless as you
I
want.
enjoy confrontation.
Right.
Yeah.
In that sense,
Right.
I love a welcomed and permission given
Oh, yeah.
confrontation.
You
We
brought
barely
this
get
out
them
of
in
me.
our lives.
You brought
That's
this out
true.
of me.
You know, like you have every right to
Right.
finally talk to this person about themselves. I love
Oh,
it.
yeah.
I feel like that's a gift.
Oh,
Okay.
shoot.
Like
Too
it's a
excited.
wrapped up gift given to you. Oh, before I do have to go soon, and I
Making mac and cheese for tomorrow.
Oh, okay, my
well,
boy.
Elle, I'm helping Elle make it.
Oh, shout out to that.
She can have
Shout out
that.
to-
She's a champion mac and cheese maker. Somebody asked the question. Christine asked the question before we may have been rolling. I'm not sure if we got it, but she said, how does that after the predator? What was it predator?
It doesn't even have to be a predator, but it doesn't even have to be a predator, though. Like, it could be anybody. Like, let's say...
You asked the question.
Hold on.
I don't think
Yeah.
Well, whomever, if you ask the question,
Yeah,
Let him
Greg.
ask it
I
again.
didn't ask it so everybody can hear.
So let's say you've been friends with this person. It could be anywhere between 2 to 7 years, or even longer than that. And they finally shoot their shot with you, and you say, "No, I'm good. I like where we are." But how does that alter the friendship going forward?
So not even a predator, just
It could be, it could just be one of your
you
friends.
get about 1-2 shots.
Yeah.
My response was for the predator.
Okay.
Okay. So
Friendship.
the friendship, when it depends on the person. Some people, which is not really the predator activity per se, they may try once. They try one time, and then that doesn't happen. And now it depends on basically both people's personalities if they're willing to move forward and be friends the same way. I've told a person that I'm interested in you and I would like to date if we can take it to that level. And I've had a person say, "No, I don't want to date and I don't want to be your friend."
Mercy.
Yeah, and I was perplexed. And because when the person said no to the date, I was like, okay, that's fine. Then we'll be friends. No, we won't.
They did a combo.
Yeah,
The combo.
and
It's 2 for 1.
but
A twofer.
in the terms of and that was that person's personality. Now that person grew in maturity, and I don't think that person would behave like that again. And also got a chance to think about how the situation went. But when it comes to the predator don't quit. The predator is not a person that says quit. So the predator, yes,
Predators get
the predator will go at you 1, 2, 3, and 4 times.
Mercy.
And one of the things that the predator would like to do is make you used to their behavior so that you accept it easier. You're not as mad because you're thinking, that's just them. That's how they are. Oh, they're always doing that because a predator predators. And a predator, you could say, Jan can say, this person tried me, and then another woman will say, oh, he tried me too. And then another woman will say, he tried me too. And then another woman will say, he tried me too.
Me too
And like,
movement.
that's just him. And he stays around and gets to go around more times.
True. True. But I think the reason why predators may start to become accepted in their behaviors is because, speaking for myself, women that have been in church environments where there's a lot of restraint, a lot of indirectness when it comes to romantic interest, we don't get that type of attention. Dude at the gas station makes me feel like a queen. You see what I'm saying? He's like, what does he say? What is the hotep? What does he say?
Queen.
No, not just good
Grand
morning.
Rising,
Grand
Grand
Rising. It can be 4:00 at night. He's gonna say, "Grand Rising Queen, you are an empress," but you don't get that in church circles. So Predator Boo comes. I'm just saying. I'm just keeping it real. Predator Bay knows.
Finally, some attention.
Listen. So that's it.
A quick question.
That's my point.
A quick question. I think as we're having this conversation, is anyone here asking themselves, what ways have I been a predator?
Of course. Look, we talked about this situation, and I'm not talking on myself, but I know a guy. but like because we do not have the conversation of what it means to date.
Right.
We don't even have a real conversation about what it means to pursue.
Right. Yeah. And what the limits should be and how it should be done. Yes.
They talk about the beginning when you're born and then you're married.
Yes.
Very rarely is that for anyone.
By learning.
Right? You really learn by doing.
If you're lucky, you have your parents' example, but
I hate to say it. If you're a guy and you can't think of a time that you have been a predator, you're not shooting enough shots.
And you're not being honest with yourself.
Correct.
There's one here.
You're not being really real with yourself. No, seriously.
Oh, yeah, so what does being a predator really look? That's probably, well, look, I think the men can answer that in regards to women. Women can probably answer that in regards to men.
I think there should be an introspection. I think a man can tell when they're being a predator.
I think this is a great time for me to go.
I felt like I was preyed on.
I see you, baby. I see you, man. Catch you, baby. He got to make that mac and cheese. Shout out to Al. Yeah, he's asking for. He's saying we need to define what a predator is.
I want to answer.
Yeah. My thing, Manny. The reason why I said I don't think women know what other women predators look like. I know we discussed it before. Well, you know what? I don't believe that. That's not true. I actually think men don't know what women predators look like.
One person.
Yeah.
I feel like predators, they stay under the radar. Like, I felt like at one point in time, there was a friend that, I thought they were strictly a friend. And then I don't know what was going on. Something came up and I was like, if somebody was near me and they liked me or whatever, like they should be able to say, like, don't be under the radar. Came to the attention. They liked me and I felt uncomfortable. Like, and so they're like, oh, I want to be with you. And I was like, I don't like you like that. And I felt like it was very under the radar. And I feel like that was predatory because here I am, in your face, in your space.
Conveying your feelings.
Being a friend, thinking you're genuine, but really you had like a motive. And I felt almost like exposed. You know what I'm saying?
The crazy thing is like that is incredibly high school in the sense that there are almost respectfully. And I said this to the Pathfinders, they tried to lynch me. Ooh. I told them, I said it to the boys. I said it to the girls. They hated me for it. I said, most of your opposite sex best friend situation, like, just be weary of it. A lot of it's not real. Like, they just don't know how to actually express that they like you. You know what I mean? Or they're just waiting. They're trying to, they don't want to embarrass themselves. Oh, goodness, these kids, they still hate me today.
That is still a true story for adults.
Exactly, and a lot of it does not mature. It's like we're friends till we're not.
A lot of predatory behavior, I believe, is trying to get whoever you're trying to pursue in an emotionally compromised or vulnerable state where you consistently wear them down.
Goodness.
Where this person confides in you, you are the person they talk to, but you've also tried to purposely put yourself in that place where you're constantly in their space, where they have to rely on you for certain things, where if I need to make a phone call to you, you're the person I'm calling. And at that point, in that person's mind's like, all right, when is that moment? When do I shoot my shot? When am I going to use everything they've told me about themselves to possibly make my way into their lives.
Yeah.
It could be their bedroom, any type of situation.
It could be the altar.
Yeah, absolutely. And like just speaking just on a situation I've seen before where when my friends was in a relationship, it was somewhat long distance and they had another friend here where they were closer, and it was like, they're just expressing how it's hard to be in a long distance relationship, explaining how it'd be nice to have company and that they miss their man. And that person, like, you're at their house, you're spending time with them. This person is mostly confiding you about their friend or about their significant other, and you're just using all that information, all that time you're spending with them to try to grow your bond with them. And that person doesn't even know you're doing that. That person just thinks you're being a genuine friend, unfortunately. So I think that is predatory behavior right there.
Yes.
And unfortunately, a lot of people, and I'm going to put myself in this category, are naive to that. And like you said, where you had to open the eyes of people to the reality, like a lot of people are not just your friends out here. They want more than that. That's really how it is. And you think you're confiding in someone. In reality, that person's just like
Data.
It's data. Oh no, data. Let's just keep cracking that door a little bit more. Let's just picking that lock a little bit more, day by day.
I just thought of that's so good. I just thought of another predator situation that happened recently in a church friend group. So I have a friend who is very helpful, always offering to help, to lend a hand, to be there. And fast forward, they helped me with something, right? Fast forward, when I was talking to somebody else in the friend group, tried to pull I had you first in public.
Wait, what?
Wait.
And
What is that?
I'm kind of confused.
Yeah.
it's like, like basically, okay, we're talking about predator behavior is saying that I am a friend to you and nothing more, but then you have another agenda. So yeah, this person tried to pull I had you first and like, I guess like put distance with me and the other person, but they never had me. To me, I think that's predatory, and I called it out and was like, no, absolutely not. Don't ever do that again. But this person calls themselves a friend. But I'm like, that wasn't my husband. But I'm like, what if that was my husband? And you playing games? Absolutely not. That's it.
And these are the situations that erode that siblinghood. Because I think we are unfortunately more familiar with these individuals than the siblinghood situation.
Yeah.
And so I think a question arises. It kind of takes it a bit full circle with us. How do you develop that proper siblinghood? What does that really look? Now that we've outlined all the ways that men and women play, how do you develop a true siblinghood in Christ?
I'm just gonna go off my personal experience. While in college, I was part of this friend group. That's all I'm gonna say. And I had to be intentional. So I had to literally go out my way to hang out with each and every one of these people on my own and together. And that was the way I was able to build those relationships. I had to really carve out time to say, I'm going to go to the movies with this person. I'm going to go to Walmart with this person. I'm going to go to the gym with this person. I'm going to go sit in my dorm room with this person. I'm going to go and check on them after they finish their tests, see how they're doing. I had to be very intentional with both my male friendships and my female friendships to develop them more. And what I started to notice is the other people in the friendship, in the group, they weren't necessarily doing that, but they appreciated it because the group was filled with people of different age groups. So we had people who were married, people with kids, people who were married without kids, people who were dating, people who were engaged, people who were single, people who didn't know what they wanted to do with their life, but still in college. So everyone was at essentially a different stage. So for me, it helped me to develop my friendships. Like, how do you be friends with people? How do you make your goal to just get to know someone? Right. So as I said, the best word I could use for it is I had to be very, very intentional and find things, they wanted to do. Like, oh, you want to play basketball? I don't play basketball, but I'm going to be outside on the court playing with you just to get to know you. You know what I'm saying? So I had to do a lot of things like that to develop those friendships. So that's just my personal experience. Not to say that, that's only what works.
Yeah.
And to add to that question, I'm not sure if somebody else wanted to answer the same thing. I think it's important for us, or it would be important for us to discuss as well, how to keep sexual interests in check. Or romantic interests. Right? So you enter a group, like imagine somebody coming into this group, and there's attractive people in the group, but you want to get to know people, not necessarily with any specific agenda in mind. How do you do that? And then if something does arise, like a particular interest arises with someone, lock in, and then express that interest without coming off as if you are a predator or you had an agenda the whole time, right? So here's a better way to pose the question. How do you develop a friendship with someone of the opposite sex where there might be a mutual attraction, but not necessarily a direct focus on dating immediately?
I actually had a specific situation like this, and for me, it was boundaries and respect. I had to literally grow up and say, you know what? I just want this to be a friendship, and that's what I'm going to get out of this. No matter how much you push, no matter how much you try to manipulate, guess what? I know what you're going through, and I know who you are. That's not what I want. I want to help you. We're going to be friends. But when I took that on, that's not something people should take on. That's not something you should go into a friendship like. This was literally me trying to help my friend. I said, anything that we do is gonna harm both of us. It's gonna harm the friendship and it's gonna harm us as individuals. It's not healthy. So I had to literally put my foot down constantly. Like it got annoying to a point, but again, I knew that opposite sex relationship, that male just needed a friend. Because most times when people end up in a manipulative situation or they're trying to manipulate a situation, as we said before, it's something in them that they're trying to fulfill or reach out to or find in someone else. Right. So it's just, you have to have that respect and that boundary. If you don't have it, you're going to slip up. You're going to slip up. It's going to happen. And I think that played a part in me now being married and knowing that my husband, I don't know if everyone knows who my husband is, but he gets a lot of attention. So I don't always get the same amount of attention that he does, but I have to be okay with that. I have to understand that I expect him to put down his boundaries and have respect for himself and our marriage to keep it going. And the same for me. Like, not to say that, I don't get, as I said, I don't get as much attention as he does, but that doesn't mean that people don't often talk to me, that I have to be aware, like, okay, this is my boundary, this is my respect. And that friendship pretty much helped me in my marriage, making sure I'm putting my foot down. I'm not gonna play those games. I'm not gonna toe the line. I'm not gonna pretend. It's this or that, black or white.
Right.
Yeah. And to your question, I think it's expected that if a group of young people or unmarried people are in a space together, that they're going to be looking at each other as options. I just think there's a line between when it's manipulative and when it's not. So if somebody new came into this group and it was a bunch of single people, I don't see any harm, any foul in them getting to know different people that they may be attracted to. But what you said is so key, that making your intentions clear or boundaries is important, because, and we talked about like flirting earlier. I think confusion can come when actions are not lining up. Like actions being flirtatious is not, it's not clear. So I think like you can come into a space and still consider everybody as an option, but just having a check on the boundaries of your actions across the board.
And this goes back, just a comment to that. This goes back to the comment we were making earlier about not really knowing how to date and how to be intentional in the beginning. But, we should be comfortable to compliment each other, right? Like Chisa mentioned, you complimented me earlier, but Jan, if you're wearing a nice dress, I want to be able to have not in a creepy way, right? But that's a really nice dress. You look beautiful, right? But in this day and age, because so much more is attached to that comment, Now, a friend can't expect me to say that to them platonically. You feel me? Which is where I would say earlier that people would recognize me as being really flirtatious before, because for me, it was just a compliment, right? That's a compliment. That's it.
I think delivery is key.
Yup, delivery matters.
Because you can say, you look good, or you can say,
Girl, that dress on you.
yeah. It's about delivery. So if you're complimenting someone, which I definitely think that men and women should give each other compliments, especially I had a man recently say, man, like, I like the way you compliment me. Men don't get compliments a lot. So I think we should be able to share that with each other. But delivery is important. Confusion can come when you say, you look good is just, a compliment that I think would be appreciated. But if you say, like, you look good, like, it has more of a between the lines of, like, if I could, you know what I mean? So I think, like, body language is really important with compliments, because if you leave something to the imagination, and, like, some of us are naive about certain things, but we're not naive about body language. Like, let's not play that card. We know what body language does. Like,
you're right. There's no reason why I should be touching Jayan when I say, that dress looks really nice on you. No, I'm just because that's where I was. That's the example I was given, right? But that's exactly my point.
Fair, to be fair.
certified baddie.
Certified baddie. Yes. But I think that is critical to talk about in quote unquote siblinghood. Is that what it is? Siblinghood, because and the other part of that about is always checking yourself as well, right? We have an obligation to each other.
Yep.
If I feel that my comment is going to get misconstrued, think twice before you do something. Yeah. Right? Don't just leave the responsibility to the person that you're communicating with to bear all the burden of not taking it wrong. Right? You hold a responsibility within yourself as well, right? To not confuse things within people, to not make gestures that can be have double meanings, right? Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
Right? So being intentional, and as it goes to the respect thing as well, if I care about you and I'm not trying to hurt you, I'm not trying to use you as a platform to boost my own ego, then I should be mindful of all these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually think the boundaries and respecting is a huge thing, in the sense that, let's say you don't have any interest in this person that's trying to talk to you, but you lead them on.
Mercy.
And I think predatory behavior works that way, where in the sense, I'm purposely leading you on just because I like the attention you give me. Whether you're in a relationship or not, like, let's say you're in a relationship and this other person is talking to you, you're in a relationship, you don't tell that person you're in a relationship, and you just keep letting them compliment you. You even let this person take you out, man or woman, and you're just like, I just like the attention you give me. Yeah. Eventually, either the truth is going to come out, or you're going to have a person who you end up breaking emotionally, simply because you just chose to lead this person on, and at no point say, listen, I'm not interested. Or even if you're interested and you say you're not interested, your behavior and your body language towards them say, I don't mind the attention you give me. It's okay if you give me a little bit more. Right. So for that, you have to set boundaries and say, let them know you're not interested. Be firm with your behavior as well.
Yeah.
I also want to add maturity, because I didn't add that before, because you have to have a certain level of maturity in your friendships and relationships in order to see it. Because you'll go in and you'll just think that something is naive, like we were talking about, but because you don't have the maturity as yet, not necessarily that it's wrong, like your intentions weren't wrong when you made that comment and you made that face. Maybe you just saw someone do it before and thought, oh, they got a positive welcome to it, so I'm just going to do it. We oftentimes want to give people responsibilities for their actions, and sometimes they're not even aware of what they're doing. And it's not all the time. It's just, you have to learn. Like, you have to learn how to walk, you have to learn how to talk, you have to learn how to use the bathroom by yourself. Those are things that we learn as human beings. So I just want to say, I want to add in maturity too.
So then you would say that the difference to what makes a person a predator is they're aware of what they're doing.
Yes. Intentionality.
Yes. The intentionality, yes. Because if they don't know, then they aren't aware. Like, yes, they can still do harm. No one is questioning the harm that they're doing. They're still doing harm. But if they're not aware of the harm that they're doing, then it's like, okay, how can they then take responsibility for that harm if they're not aware?
Okay, well said.
And something else is, as a group, we should look out for each other. So ladies, especially if you guys should trust in each other, if you're seeing that someone in the group is, one of the women is maybe entering a harmful situation, feel free to like tap them on the side, or maybe find another woman that they're really close to have a conversation with them. And likewise with the man, feel free to walk up to the man and be like, yo, why are you doing that? Why do you touch her like that? Right? You shouldn't be doing that. Are you interested? Which is how we talk as men. We've pulled men aside and listened. Are you interested in her?
Doing too much, right?
If you are interested in her, are you actually willing to step up to the plate of, you understand what she's looking for? If you're not willing to do that, leave her alone.
Facts.
And we've been that brutal, or not brutal, but direct.
Yeah,
with each
that-
other.
yeah,
And
direct.
That's been very, very helpful.
There be times where we tell even a woman, listen, don't talk to that man. Stay away from him.
Oh my goodness, we say that all the time.
Absolutely.
But I think that something that's interesting, when we were talking kind of during the cuts or whatever, y'all were like, y'all sure y'all talking to y'all boys?
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that we aren't going to see everything. They not in my DMs. They're not hitting me up.
Facts.
And if they do, I will address that. Okay? But yeah. But so we know what we see. And that's oftentimes when our kind of social policing takes place. But I'd hope that in this group, y'all can feel safe talking to someone, one of us, at minimum, that can at least take that role and make it serious. Because I think that there have been certain instances, right, where, man, we just feel sick, right? It's like, dang, how did we miss that, right? And I think that's where now, honestly, collectively as a group, we all have to feel like, what culture are we fostering that something like this could take place?
Yeah. I also think while we talk about Siblinghood, we focus on like male and female, but I also think like sisterhood, like you mentioned before, brotherhood is very important, because sometimes, we want to keep things to ourselves, and that can keep you in a pit where something can happen and it's too late. You know what I'm saying? So I think accountability, not just for ourselves, but having it amongst our community is important. I love that you guys spoke about like brotherhood and like sisterhood. I think, something this year, like just for me, I've been intentional with trying to, make more connections and also nurture those friendships, and also open myself to accountability, right? And also hold friends, accountable too. And I think that has like built stronger connections, relationships, friendships, and allowed for things to be seen as well, where conversations can happen. Like a sister might be going through something and it's like, all right, that's not right. Or, hey, there's so-and-so, like moving in the group funny or whatever. And it's allowed for conversations to be like, hey, let's hop on the phone and, like communicate, with a brother, let's get feedback, or, like, hey, we're sitting Sabbath lunch, like pastor, like, without exposing anybody, but just covering, my sister, my brother. I try to be intentional about that, because I think part of healthy, what is it called? Siblinghood is having conversations.
Seriously.
As well as having boundaries.
Just pick right off that, not to distract it. Part of it is having conversations like these, because the big fear is that I'm going to say something, and this person that I'm already scared as a predator, that I already feel is great at manipulation, is going to turn all these people against me.
Yeah.
Man, I've been there.
And that happens, right? And that's where we have to now come in as a group and understand what we stand for or don't.
Yeah.
So that we can at least be on the same page. So that we can at least say, well, now that we've called that out, let's move forward. Hey, you know what? Maybe there's some misunderstanding, but we've now addressed it. Here's where you did wrong, and here's why someone might feel some way.
Yeah. And I think it's really important that, like, in the addition to like having a really good like siblinghood, like a friend group, it also is very important that you find specific people that you know you can have very like deep conversations with, like whether it is like with the opposite sex or same sex. Like for me personally, like I make sure that I, at least when I enter into a new friend group, I look for people that I'm like, if I needed to talk about something that's very like near and dear to my heart, who could I talk to? And like, who can I go to? Because I'm going to need that person eventually. I can't always go to Greg and like ask him like, hey, I'm going through this. And like, he is my person. I just can't always like spread my business or somebody else's business to him. So it's like out of confidentiality, I'm like, who else in this friend group would I be able to talk to? And that's my sister. Yeah. And then in the same sense where it's like, if I need a man's perspective on something, who is near and dear to my heart, that I'm like, hey, can I call you really quick and like talk to you about something that's very personal to me? Yeah. And also with that person, like you guys were saying, like boundaries is very important, because if you're talking to another guy or even another woman and you ask certain information on maybe your opinion on like, or their opinion on what you're going through or somebody else or whatever, it is very important who you talk to and the boundaries that you have, because if that person is single, married, engaged, dating, or a predator, God forbid, then like it's very important that like you really have your intentions set on who you're talking to. But I think it's it's really important to have those friends for sure.
1,000%. And I just want to highlight some of the fruits that I've experienced from being able to be the recipient of brotherhood and sisterhood. With sisterhood, I think the biggest thing for me has been directness and feedback that helped me grow. And with brotherhood, like my friend Mike Gift, I go to them on dating things and they give it to me straight. So I honestly, like, I think my standards in dating are high because I have so many brotherhood brothers and I see how you all move, and I'm just not impressed if someone's not even close to that. And so we've talked a lot about predators and when it can go wrong, but I just want to give flowers to the brother and sisterhood that already exists. In this conversation.
So this was awesome. This was a really fruitful conversation. And the good thing about Sabbath lunch is that, you know, people end up getting sleepy because they got a nap. That Sabbath nap hit too. But what happens is these are the types of conversations that can go on 2-3 more hours. Right? We've touched the surface. I think the hope here is that we've started this conversation, but y'all get to finish it, right? That you get to take this to your Sabbath table. If you don't got one, you know, you can come over here, Live in Faith, West Orange, or whatever church in North Jersey. We just got to support Allegheny East. You know what I mean? Shout out to
New Jersey Conference.
Yeah. New Jersey Conference too, cool too. We like it too. New Jersey Conference cool too. We just happen to be in Allegheny East. So, you know, if you're around, hey, hit us. We out here. If you're not, we got online and whatnot, but I really recommend you hitting your local. Right, so do your thing. Thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for listening. We appreciate you. Enjoy your food. Talk to y'all soon. This boy. Wait. Nah. Oh, thank goodness. This is the Gen Z heart. There we go. This is the Gen Z heart accusing me of gang signs. This is a Gen Z heart. All right, peace out, y'all. We out. Thanks.